Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Talking Point on your WESN, the content capital, the only station in the nation that's broadcasting in HD. Other stations technically have the equipment with all of the money that they get from state media, but they don't broadcast in HD. Don't know why. Don't know why. That said, folks, this is Talking Point. Keaton is not with me this morning. Those of you who would have come from watching AM Prime and stayed with us, you all would have seen him there, but he's unable to join us, but that's okay. We'll have Karen, of course, our usual Wednesday contributor, joining us shortly. But before we get to speak to Karen, we start off today's show, as always, with the Daily Review. Of course, the biggest piece of news, I think, coming out of yesterday, and it's sort of weird because it's not that earth-shattering piece of news, but it's still very much more significant than most other things that's going to affect our day-to-day life, and that is the announcement of local government elections on August the 14th. There's no surprise there. I think one political commentator in a daily newspaper said it was no surprise to him that the government is looking to take the full 90 days to try to campaign, as much as possible for local government elections. But to be honest, I do wonder if either party was truly, truly ready. I think it might have been more of a case where, just in case, let's start to put things in place, but are they really, ready to go if we had local government elections tomorrow? Well, I don't think so. I mean, UNC is now having to figure out, they have 2 councillors to replace that, went to the other side. Is that going to be the end of it? Does that have any wider meaning for the local government election campaign, which really and truly is, a plethora, one could argue, of small campaigns, because you're going to have, well, there's no central leading figure. That's point number 1. And point number 2, you're going to have a multitude of different individuals per each region. So we have it. It's on August the 14th. I guess the best thing we could say is school will be out. Hopefully that makes things a bit easier, except that's also when, families tend to have vacation and travel, and that could also have something of a detrimental, unintended side effect on voter turnout, which, to be honest, I think, folks, we need to get real. If you want to complain about the government, regardless of which party it is, right? You could be a PNM supporter or a UNC supporter. You could be completely hating what's going on in the country right now, or you could be sipping tea while, the fire is raging all around you. You might not agree with me that there's fire raging all around you. All that's fine. But I say this to say, you should participate in local government elections, right? It does matter. It should be one of the obvious and important channels for a political party to help facilitate the needs of people at the ground level. We're not talking about, I'm the head of a big corporation and I need some major support or help or change or grant or no. This is about maintaining where you live, the roads that you drive on. You, not some big highway project for one part of the country. We're talking about the everyday life of everybody. And I think to some extent, because there's maybe less expectations, right, then one could argue that helps the central government, or allows them to get away with withholding funds. To be fair, they withhold funds for a lot of things, including ministerial expenditure, right? Just read between the lines of the last mid-year budget review. That wasn't really much of a mid-year budget review with regards to, well, we have to pay bills, 7 years worth of contractors that we owe, not just VAT refunds. So I think we need to have high expectations for all of our political representatives. But also, this is a chance to send a message. I think Senator Dayal Singh, Independent Senator Dayal Singh, he more or less said it best. The good thing about having local government elections every 3 years is it gives you a chance to go to the polls in the mid-year period, which is not always an easy thing for government to do. But like the Senator said, why 4 years, why not 5? Why not just put it in line with general? If you're going to take it, pull it further away from the midpoint of a general administration term. So there's some use to this. You know, right now, political analysts, they count all of the elections that has been happening, whether it's local, general, even the THA, to try and get a pulse of the nation. It's one of the few ways that you will have a chance to express yourself in a way that matters, not just a few people here and there in a vox pop that may or may not reflect the entirety of the nation. A vote, even one that has a low voter turnout, will still have a larger sample size than any poll, I believe, that we conduct in TNT. So, if you can, go ahead and vote. Moving on to the next story. One of the stories we were planning to talk about yesterday was, well, there was a shooting of a parent who was in a school compound when he got shot. Shot in the arm, of course, very traumatic because this is a firearm going off in a school. So it affected the students and the operations of the school that day, yesterday, the day before yesterday, I believe it was. Now the ministry has come out and there's a new policy in place. Let me just double check if it's the ministry or if it's the school itself. The ministry has come out to say that for that specific school, parents will no longer be able to enter that specific primary school to drop off their children. Now, on one hand, I understand you had an incident and you do want to guard against the incident. I am still not entirely clear if the father, because the initial report that I read, I believe, it seems as though he tried to escape the gunman by going into the school, which, look, I understand, you're afraid for your life. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I would hope I would be courageous enough to look for a different escape route, so that if I think that my life is in danger, I'm not, bringing the danger, pulling the danger with me, leading it into a school of primary school kids, not even secondary school, where, the students might be just a little bit more aware and might have a little bit more capacity to help themselves get into a safer situation. This is primary school. So he shouldn't have done that, if that's what happened. If it was a case where he was in the school and a gunman came after him, and again, I get it, you don't necessarily want to attract that sort of violence into your school. But I find it hard to believe that every single parent of this one primary school is somehow going to be involved in something that's going to cause themselves to be the target of a gunman who is going to be willing to come into a school in order to pursue their target and discharge their weapon in a school. Again, let me just sidetrack here. What is society coming to where schools and school children seem to be, well, whatever, it's fair game. I would like to think, well, what can I say? Criminals, why do we expect them to have standards? Maybe that's just naive of me, right? But the thing is, what is the actual root problem here? So the surface problem is, well, we don't want this incident happening again. I can understand that. But it's not really going to solve your problem, right? because then you could have parents shot in front of school. And of course, if children are going to the school, because all the parents are dropping off their children in front of the school, they can't drop them off in the school now, you could still have children in the line of fire. So what are you really solving? You're preventing a very specific situation, which is not the only permutation of potential violence that could lead to a tragic incident in this environment, with the basic premise of father, gunman who wants to shoot father, school. So the real issue is not, well, parents should not be allowed to drop their kids into school. And by the way, again, are all the parents guilty? Peter paying for Paul? And James paying for Paul? And Jane paying for Paul? And Sandra paying for Paul? And Marcus paying for Paul? And Crystal paying for Paul? So I can't drop my kid in school now? So what? Does that mean that I am now not able to go onto the school compound? The issue is there's a criminal willing to engage a target in front, within, around, within the vicinity of the school. Bullets don't need to be next to you. They could fly a distance. I could be shooting at someone in front of the school. It could go into the school. Criminals don't necessarily care what's behind their target. So now the real issue, and what I think would have been a bit more workable as a solution. One, obviously, deal with the crime situation in the country, right? The fact that this guy is looking to get away with it. A school has a lot of witnesses. This criminal doesn't seem to care about that. He's not afraid of the criminal justice system. Basic answer, that has to be improved, because this is a symptom of the larger problem of our failing criminal justice system. But beyond that, okay, that's a long-term thing, right? That's the obvious long-term answer. That ain't gonna happen overnight. Maybe the school needs a security guard that's armed. Or in this case, I will agree a police presence for this school. Because again, the child still goes to school. So the gunman could still be looking for the child. And now the child has to be dropped off outside of the school, in front of the school. If the father is there, again, as I said before, now you have targets, etc., etc. Or perhaps, heaven forbid, the gunman takes it a step further. I can't find your father. Let me not connect the dots fully. So perhaps maybe a police presence in front. Because this is not even a policy now for the Ministry of Education. This is just policy, that is to say, for all schools. This is just policy for this school. But this problem, why are we assuming that it's limited to this school? But again, if we want a school-specific solution, security, cameras, but more importantly, police. Police for all schools, that's a bit on the manpower. Arm the police for one school, that's two bodies. I think that's workable. Tell me if I'm crazy. Tell me if I'm wrong. Last story that I want to get into, and it's a bit of good news again. It seems as though foreign affairs tends to be one of the few positive, net positive ministries. When you add everything up together, the happenings and going-ons and communications and activities and policies and implementations and achievements, most other ministries touch and go. Some look real bad. Foreign affairs looks kind of good. Now, to what extent are they directly responsible for this? I don't know. I'm not that deep into the technicalities. But the long and short is, there is visa-free travel to Canada, which is a very big deal because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe the three major destinations country-wise for Trinidadian nationals are the US, the UK, and Canada, right? Diaspora is strong, I believe, in all three of those places for obvious reasons. English-speaking Commonwealth nations and America, you know, the big superpower that's right next door. It's too easy to be going there. Now, it comes with caveats. First of all, it's not a free-for-all. You need to have had a Canadian visa, a valid visa, to the Canada, or I believe the US, right, in order to apply for the Electronic Travel Authorization Program. So by doing that, you get to go through an electronic process, which is, it seems to be, well, obviously a lot easier than trying to apply for a visa, and fairly automatic. I don't think once you just, fill in whatever they need you to fill in, provide whatever they need you to provide, you should be able to get authorized. But again, this is if you would have had a previous visa to Canada, right? The idea is it will ease up the applications to go to Canada. So I believe for the rest of us, because, well, I haven't been to Canada in a long time, then the application process should not be as long because they won't have the backlog. So it's good news. Now, you will, like I said, you have to go through the ETA system. You could check it out online. It shouldn't be too difficult. And you could check the press for more specific information. But it's still good news. We have a pretty strong passport, believe it or not. It doesn't seem so, but we do. And it's just one more of those things where we kind of take it for granted how good we have it here in sweet TNT. God is a Trinity after all. He didn't leave us with the dregs. We take it for granted though. And eventually, it might not always be there. All of these nice things that we have. Look, oil is going, gas is going. Can't take it for granted, then the other things will also remain. But folks, let's take a break. When we come back, should be speaking to Karen about Revenue Authority, another financial instrument, to put it a certain way, that she had a hand in the initial formation. But of course, administrations changed, and there were changes that came along with the whole concept, purpose, legislation around the Revenue Authority. So we'll get into that after this.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Did you know that polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is one of the most common issues faced by women of reproductive age in Trinidad and Tobago?
So we see more patients with polycystic if they're obese, but there are the small-billed patients who also have polycystic ovaries.
What other treatment options are there available for these girls? What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movie Town, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andy.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, the good lady of Talking Point herself, attorney at law, former Minister of Finance, and the teacher to many a disappointing legal parliamentarian. Right? That's just how I put it. Disappointing.
Disappointing or disappointed?
Well, you're disappointed. And some of your students are disappointed.
I'm not going to say that.
You're not going to say that?
Not at all, because no, I won't say that. Not only were they some of them were my students, but all of them were my colleagues, like Anthony Vera, Hazel Thompson, Ahi, Christine. There were a lot of them that also fell into the category of colleagues. So I won't be ill-speaking anybody that is either in a judicial or other capacity.
For the record, I was not referring to Anthony Vera.
No, but I'm just saying.
I know. I'm just...
Right, so you clarify.
I'm just clarifying.
And in fact, Anthony Vera is one of my very, 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 very good friends.
Those who follow the show and listen to what I say, they will know who I am disappointed in. as a lawyer
right.
in Parliament.
So we don't have to go in, we don't have to go into too much on that, but Anthony, if you're hearing, or any of your colleagues are hearing, you know that we have an excellent relationship going back to law school, and there has been no difference in that, and you know that. So, but we won't be going into the others because I may not be able to be so kind.
Well, speaking about law and legislature, so before we get into the specific topic at hand, you wanted to go into a wider general topic of some observations on reform that you've made?
Yes. No. What I really wanted to do, when Sean and I were discussing what's new happening in the news cycle. Are we going to talk about the same old? And I guess Talking Point is known for doing much more than that, and so we want to maintain that standard. So the latest thing that is in the news and is worthy of consideration, and from my point of view, even more so because it's the Revenue Authority, Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. And the reason why I feel competent to even speak to it is because when I was in government as a Minister of Finance, I was not the instigator or the author of looking towards a revenue authority. It started from in 2002 with the Gordon Dean Committee. At that time, he was president of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And that committee had looked at what were the failings or what were the weaknesses of the position in terms of taking two departments. So first of all, I should say that the Revenue Authority is an integration of Customs and Excise and Inland Revenue, Board of Inland Revenue. So it's two. It's not just Inland Revenue, it's the Customs and Excise. So they did look at it and they made some very pointed criticisms. But as minister, I was responsible for setting up let me just say this first. One of the reasons why we pushed hard on the Revenue Authority, as we did with the Gambling Commission and the FIU, was at the time when we were in government, the Prime Minister made it very clear to me that we had a requisite 3/5 majority. Why is that important? Because certain laws require a 3/5 majority because it may be seen to infringe on constitutional rights. The Industrial Relations Act comes to mind easily. So he was very adamant about pushing those types of legislation. Why were those legislation important? Because the approach is there, and I'm speaking from a personal authority now, so it's not somebody came and told me, and people can disagree with me, but no, they're free to disagree with me. But as the Minister of Finance, obviously, I will work very closely with the Prime Minister. And his approach, among other approaches, yes, he had his Minister of National Security, who had his role, Attorney General, and some of which overlapped with my responsibilities. And in terms of the legislative agenda, because I think my focus, certainly in my ministry, was on the legislative agenda. And that legislative agenda, which was the Prime Minister's approach to dealing with the money laundering and the drug trafficking in our country, not just boots on the ground and all Anaconda and all those other things, which he was part of, yes, I would agree with that. But he had taken a more scientific approach to it, and what I think what he was doing was creating a very holistic approach, a sort of a Chinese wall on different levels. So national security dealt with their part, Attorney General dealt with her part, and I had to deal with my part. So what was my part? The FIU. I won't go into too much detail, but I want people to understand a little bit because they speak, and obviously I don't think that this government is enthusiastic about letting people know what was being done. The Financial Intelligence Unit, which we had intended, because I was then still the minister, we were not putting a Trinidadian, we were not putting a Caribbean person, but we had the Washington, I met with them to bring us somebody out of either worked in Central America or Latin America who had successfully set up an FIU, because we understood the realities of the politics of small countries. So that was one of the things that was going to be done. The Gambling Commission similarly, and not surprisingly, there were members within my own cabinet who were very much against closing down the gambling and came up with various prescriptions, all of which would not see the end of what was called private member clubs, which were really casinos, which we have seen a proliferation of. And because we had a 3/5 majority, there were provisions in that legislation. I can mention just one very quickly, was that we would not need to get your permission to come into your establishment to determine whether or not you are carrying out activities that were in breach of the laws and the criminal laws. Under the current iteration, which does not require a special majority, they cannot enter those premises without your permission. They have to then, if you do not give them permission, get permission from a justice of the peace or the magistrate, sorry, and it's only then. By which time, of course, you know, nothing beats having prior notice. So that does not need any more 3/5 majority. So that was another one of the legislative moves that we were proposing. Another one was the procurement legislation. And it is just ironic. I just have to go through this for you to understand that this was not just vai-ki-vai. It was not vai-ki-vai. Maybe you felt it was vai-ki-vai, but it was not. The procurement legislation, it was on a Monday, I think I had Mr. Lalman on another show, and I was even surprised that though most of the regulations that were required in order to bring the legislation into force had been passed and had been enacted, he said to me that Section 7, which deals with the key, what contracts are not subject to the monitoring by the procurement regulator, that part had not been proclaimed, and neither, I don't want to say with surety Section 23, but the disposal of state lands, that had also not been proclaimed. So it was business as usual. Thursday morning, by Thursday, they decided to proclaim it. But guess what? There's no regulator, because Mr. Lalman, who's an obvious choice to continue at least for a year to guide the new regulator that they may have chosen, his term of office came to an end in January. He had a 5-year term. You knew it was coming to an end. So now you have now proclaimed, but where's the regulator? So that's about 3. And one of the things he said as we were ending the show, which kind of surprised me, and I told him that the other day, that he's very self-effacing, very, you know, and he said, at the end of the show, he said, you know, there's no point passing the Procurement Regulation Act, the Procurement and Disposal of Property Act, unless you pass the Campaign Financing Act, because they're intertwined and interrelated. It is the same persons who would finance your campaign or other ways of financing, which we will not go into, that are the ones that will affect, I need that project for X, Y, and Z, because I have contributed X, Y, and Z, and that's my return on investment. And so he said, and that law, nobody's talking about it. And this brings me finally to what I said that I would speak about this morning, but I just wanted to say what I said, just to put things in context, and I am in a position to do that because all those pieces of legislation came under my ministry, and I was directly involved in all of them because there were only 2 ministers, Minister of and Minister in, which was Mariano, and he was State Enterprises. So I was right. So I was directly involved, and I got my instructions from day one from the Prime Minister, and he made it clear to me that we had a 3/5 majority. So this was the time.
Now,
to be coming out.
But now, of course, now we could get into the specifics of the Revenue Authority.
Right.
But I do believe, and one of the things that we want to get into is that there were some changes between then and now, because a lot of time has passed, and we've seen that with procurement, and we've seen that with other things. In part, one could say maybe because they don't have 3/5 majority. But, you know, one must ask questions about other motivations.
Precisely. I mean, one could say, in fairness, as you have said, some of the legislation does require 3/5 majority, and certainly the current government does not have that. So without calling names of anyone, I was told that there was very much a dilution, I use the word dilution, of those many pieces of legislation in order for them to be able to pass. And one of them was the Gambling Commission, where you have, right. But the one that I was most, very much involved in was the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. Now, as I said, I'm not the author of it. It started in 2002. A former minister in the ministry was the one that was responsible for it. But I did take it over, probably took it over with a vengeance, because I was very aware of the 3/5 that was hanging over my head. So we had a board. A board was appointed to assist in, how we were going to set up this authority. And the key to the authority was this. As much as the Gordon Dean committee focused on things like deficient HR resources, inadequate employee compensation, inefficient system, but these are the things that we were really concerned. I'm telling you this, things that we were really concerned about. I'm not saying we weren't concerned about those other things, but we were very concerned about the inefficient systems for internal investigation and enforcement, and the high incidence of corruption and corrupt practices. We were very much concerned about that, and we were very much aware that a lot of that came from customs and excise. And yeah, we were very much aware of that. I mean, I'm saying it as it is. I think I'm in a position to say that. And what was very noteworthy to me was when I went on site to the Ministry of Finance, and to let you know the background, they went from 2002 to 2021. No mention about what happened in 2010 when the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority Act was passed in the lower house, but then the Prime Minister prorogued Parliament because he called an early election.
Right.
Right, so that brought an end to my...
Well, hold there, because we do need to take a quick break, right? But we'll get into what that meant, because I'd like to hear the specifics. I don't know the details, what that meant for now the implementation of the Revenue Authority. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com. And we're back with Talking Point. Sean Michael Small, Karen Yosishera. Karen, as the former Minister of Finance, who was there in that particular hot seat when a lot of these legislations were coming down the pipe, were being formulated, and it was being formulated as part of a greater whole in order to help deal with corruption, crime, drugs, etc. So, I don't know, well, we could more or less pick up where you left off and explain all of that to the public.
So the reason why I feel that I can speak on the issue is because I was in the driver's seat at the time. It's noteworthy to me, as I said, that they jumped from 2002 to 2021 when it came to the Revenue Authority. But I just want to say this one thing before I move on and deal with the Revenue Authority. I do recall, and I'm in a position to do that the Prime Minister at the time, God rest his soul, said to me, when after maybe I was there a year or so, he said to me that, you know, this boots on the ground, not to say that he was abandoning it, I would not say that, but he said that, you know, what we have to do is prevent it from coming onshore in the first place. Let's stop it from coming in. And he used the term a Chinese wall, so you disrupt it. So it was not just me working from the legislative end or from the financial legislation that was required, key pieces that would have acted as a disincentive, but you also had Ministry of National Security, the acquisition of OPVs, acquisition of helicopters, the radar system that could go right up to St. Kitts, if I recall him saying, and also the boats being able to stay out at sea for 2 weeks at a time and having the capacity to outrun the boats that were able to speed through and you couldn't catch them in time. So I was not national security, but what I'm trying to say by saying that, it was not silos. We were not operating in silos. We were operating in a very, very sort of integrated method, with each ministry having some overlap, yes, but each ministry playing its role in dealing with what we considered a disruption of the trade without the trade coming onshore. So I just think people need to understand that that was what was going on. And if people think that was not what's going on, that was what was going on. And I think I can speak with authority on that. SORT was also part of it. And just to make it clear too, because I want people to see the interrelationship. It wasn't as though the FIU was operating in a little corner by itself and SORT was operating in a little corner by itself, Ministry of Finance, Central Bank, and the banks. No, it was never that. They were all, we use a special model with the banks for reporting to the Central Bank. The Central Bank would then report to the FIU. The FIU, which would then have the intelligence, gathering of intelligence, would then go to SORT, which was a special unit which dealt with the corruption. And then the last piece, which we were about to implement, was in the DPP, to have a special unit within the DPP that would be ring-fenced, probably in a separate building, whose responsibility would be to deal with the laws and understand the laws and have the training in money laundering and drug.
I just wanted to, before you get into the Revenue Authority, I almost feel the regret of what could have been.
I do all the time.
And just what would our crime situation and corruption situation have been if these things were put in place? And then, of course, now the semi-conspiracy theorist in me has to ask the question, because what we have now is simple majority legislation for all of these things, a version of simple majority for all. This would have been 3/5 majority, it would have been a bit stronger, right? We don't have the Coast Guard assets and radar that was planned to have. So,
but scanners don't even work in.
Is part of Mr. Manning's downfall the fact that there were people that didn't want to see these things in place?
Well, I mean, everybody knows. Okay, yes, and I have to be honest in this way that I guess everybody knows that I am very loyal to Mr. Manning, but it's not Mr. Manning the person. I didn't have that type of relationship. My relationship was that of a minister who did not want to let down the prime minister, and then began to understand his vision and understand what he was doing and understand how all those pieces are like a jigsaw puzzle interconnected.
Well, just before another time, the Revenue Authority
right.
itself.
So, okay, with the Revenue Authority, we needed a 3/5 majority. And although we focused on collection of taxes as being the basic focus, I don't know if people recognize, and if you look at it, the Ministry of Finance had two components. It had the Board of Inland Revenue and it had Customs and Excise. Customs and Excise fell under the Ministry of Finance. There were some people who wanted to cut it off and put it in another ministry for whatever reasons they may have been, but they didn't want it. But what really made me decide to say something which I have not said for countless years is because it is very surprising to me that all of the components of the Revenue Authority, which is supposed to be semi-autonomous and not be subject to the Public Service Commission, because you know that a lot of people will, all over the world, stay in public service jobs, even though they're not the best paying, because it's very hard to fire them because of how the service commissions operate. So the issue that we had, and the corruption and the corrupt practices and all of that Gordon Dean they were speaking about, was that they knew who were the corrupt parties. Some custom officers were killed. I don't know if you remember. No, I don't know if it happened around the scene, but there were some that had been killed. So we understood that it was really, and I don't want to go into too much detail to the extent to which we were dealing with it, but I can assure you we were dealing with it. But we couldn't come out to the public and say that was the main thing, because you could imagine those who are powerful in this country, very powerful in this country, would come down and use their resources through the media to, to make a mockery of what we were doing. So we had to be very careful how we projected it. But it really was, to a large extent, to deal with the drugs, trafficking, and the money laundering. And the Customs and Excise played a major part. So when I read now, I looked for the legislation which we had passed. I can't find it. Maybe it's there somewhere, but even on the Ministry of Finance website, they go from 2002 to 2021. Key thing that you notice is that they have the Director General, they have the Deputy Director General, and then they have the Deputy Director General Enforcement. He or she who is responsible for enforcement. And this is what it is, because you remember Customs is will be part of the Revenue Authority, as it is now part of the Ministry of Finance, Board of Inland Revenue. Right. The Border Control, Customs Division, regulation of, this is what it said his responsibilities would be. Regulation of exports and imports of goods from or into Trinidad and Tobago, patrolling, surveillance, and protecting borders of Trinidad and Tobago, regulation of conveyance entering into or departing from Trinidad and Tobago, enforcement in relation to custom laws. Now, that enforcement division remains in the public service. What does that mean? The whole idea of the Revenue Authority was the fact that you couldn't fire, you couldn't hire, you couldn't discipline, you couldn't move. You had very little leeway because of the public service rules. And so the whole thinking behind the Revenue Authority was to take it out of that sort of restrictive environment and allow us to hire people that, in particular, in certain divisions, and the division was enforcement.
Right.
The division was enforcement. So the only division in the new Revenue Authority that does not fall under the purview of the board, of the Revenue Authority board, over which, of course, the Minister of Finance, some will say he has too much oversight, there are a lot of revenue authorities all over the world, but the only one that is still subject to the Public Service Commission, still subject to the discipline, hiring thing, is the Public Service Commission. It's in the law.
No, is it the enforcement?
Enforcement.
Right.
And they actually say in the law that all these provisions that we have apply except to the deputy director enforcement. And then they tell you the deputy director enforcement will be under the Public Service Commission and all the public, including all public officers hired by the Public Service Commission. The very thing that we wanted the Revenue Authority to do. If people don't understand that, I'm telling you that is what it was. Yes, it was, and when we talk about collection of taxes, I will give the minister a lot of kudos for this. If it is that he says, and he rightfully says, that a lot of people evade or avoid, I don't know, one is illegal, one is legal, payment of taxes, he took initiatives in 2 years in a row where he had hired people on short-term contracts to go after the persons who had not been paying their taxes. And it was more successful than he had ever dreamt of. I think he was able to reach about 5 billion. So if it is that, if it's not broke, why fix it? At this point in time, you can still, because a lot of the reading on revenue authorities, not every revenue authority is successful. But you see, our revenue authority, its focus wasn't, it was on revenue collection. I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying it wasn't. But we had the problem that many other countries do not have, or do not have as a major issue, the issue of drug and money laundering. The EU still has us blacklisted, and it was the problem in 2008, 2009. So the driving force behind the Revenue Authority, as I understood it, and as being the person who was in charge of that initiative, I understood it, and there are things that I won't say, that understood that we were going after the drugs and after the money laundering.
Because you would be using financial intelligence, you'll be tracking the money, you'll be controlling customs, so
everything connected.
And everything will be right. The special police unit, which has now been, I guess you could say, it's funny because there is a version of all these things, but the way how they were implemented by other parties, they're disconnected, and they seem to be a shell of themselves, right? Or in the case of SORT, they seem to be...
But SORT had to be shut, SORT had to be shut down.
Right. They seem to be bastardized versions of what the original intention was.
Well, that sort of Gary Griffiths doing was closed down by the U.S. because they said there were too many extrajudicial killings. They had to come out and admit it.
I mean, we haven't heard the final verdict.
No, they came out in the papers.
No, I know they came out in the papers, but honestly, we shall, I believe it's 2 cases of which we
Somebody falling off a chair.
Two men fell off a chair.
Andrea Barrett, God rest her soul, because it was the only child of the gentleman who lost his only daughter. So I'm not making light of that. So please, we respect that and we honor that. But the Americans had enough of it.
Well, so this Vision of Revenue Authority, outside of that change, right, that they are going to put the enforcement division under the public service.
That's a big thing.
I know it's a big thing. Are there any other changes that we should be aware of?
Well, the other one that, just curiously, may not, I'm only mentioning it because it's more than ironic to me. And that was, we were very gung-ho, and a lot of pressure was applied to get it going and use the 3/5 majority. So the Canadians who had been brought in before me and had given advice, so they were very well, they knew the system, and they knew all the different ways that you can close down Ministry of Finance, Board of Inland Revenue and Customs, and there are different models that you could apply. And we have what we call a policy formulation committee, which was every Wednesday headed by the Prime Minister and attended by certain ministers. The bottom line was this: they had made a presentation to me and my department and had recommended that the best model is the model that is in the Section 18, which is you get VSEP if you don't want to go to another department.
Right.
We could appoint you if you want to come into the Revenue Authority. We appoint you because they want to get rid of the corruption. That's the truth, right? The other alternative, if we don't choose you in the interviewing process, then you go to another ministry which you would not lose your salary or your stay as much as possible, as it is possible.
Right.
Those were put on the table, and it was utilized in many countries, and that was the recommendation that was made to us. When a recommendation came and they came to the party, I shan't call the name of the ministers, but I will just tell you, they said, no, we're not doing that, shut down everything. Oh my Lord, I said, if we shut down everything, do you know what you're causing? Why are we going to do that? I mean, don't you think it's hard enough doing what we're doing rather than now going and shut down custom and shut down in a revenue? No. I won't say more because then I'll be giving out who may have said, who are the persons who would have said that. I was so adamant, myself and others were so adamant, but I in particular, that the Prime Minister said, okay, let the consultants stay one more day, and we're going to have a special meeting of the Cabinet on Friday to decide what model we're going to use. And I would just say to you that it was by a show of hands, and everybody, let them all now say, they can't say anything, because guess what? After those who sat down there and said, no, they are, right, you see the model they use in Section 18 for which they could not get the injunction? That's the model that we wanted, and that's the model they shut down. Yes, so some of whom are in this current cabinet. I just wanted to say that.
Current cabinet. So, yes. Folks, that injunction is actually, there's further implications than just individuals concerned about their job security. If we really want to deal with corruption, that also means that some people might have to be called out about what they're not doing right or what they're doing wrong. And it's going to happen.
By the way, we have to go. But if you went into enforcement, we chose you. You had to do lie detector, drug testing. You were like if you were in SOT.
Exactly. That's how serious crime was being taken back in 2010.
In enforcement, especially.
Look at what we have now. Folks, I'll comment more about that after this break. We have news on the hour. When we return, of course, we'll try to open up the phone line and hear from you, the viewer. But I have some things to say about the seriousness of crime fighting from the political class. Stay tuned, news on the hour next.
This is your WESN News on the Hour. Thank you for joining us. Here are the headlines. Travelers from Trinidad and Tobago now qualify for visa-free travel to Canada. Library man held with loaded pistol at home. Women's CPL 2023 final to be hosted in TNT. In regional news, Ghana elected to non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. And internationally, China says war with US would be unbearable disaster. With the details, I'm Keaton Shaw. Trinidad and Tobago has been named among 13 countries that are under the Electronic Travel Authorization Program. Travelers from these countries who have either held a Canadian visa in the last 10 years or who are currently holding a valid United States non-immigrant visa can now apply for an ETA. A media release states effective today, eligible travelers from these countries can benefit from the program. One pistol and a quantity of ammunition was seized by officers of the Southwestern Division during an anti-crime exercise conducted in the La Brea district on Monday. The exercise was conducted between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. on June 5th, during which task force officers and the K9 unit proceeded to Sobo Village, La Brea, where they conducted a search of the home of a 23-year-old suspect. During the search, one Austria Glock 19 pistol, loaded with a magazine containing 14 rounds of ammunition, was seized. The suspect, who was at the house at the time of the search, was arrested in connection with the find. Investigations are ongoing. The 2023 edition of the Women's CPL will feature 7 matches, as opposed to 4 in the inaugural season last year. The league will be underway on August 30th, with the final taking place on September 10th in Trinidad and Tobago. The sides taking part are the Trinbago Knight Riders, Barbados Royals, and the Guyana Amazon Warriors. Barbados will serve as the other venue for the tournament. Minister of Sport and Community Development Shamfa Cujo said the government is pleased to partner with the Caribbean Premier League to host the final match of the 2023 Women's CPL. In regional news, the President of Guyana, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali, hailed Guyana's election as a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council for 2024-2025. In a statement, Dr. Mohamed Irfan Ali said Guyana is honored and humbled by the confidence that has been expressed by the international community in electing us to this most important position of the responsibility on the global stage. In international news, China's defense minister has said war with the US would be an unbearable disaster for the world in his first major speech since taking on the role. At a security summit, General Li Shangfu said some countries were intensifying an arms race in Asia, but he said the world was big enough for both China and the United States, and the two superpowers should seek common ground. Earlier, the US accused a Chinese warship of carrying out unsafe maneuvers in the Taiwan Strait. The US Navy said a Chinese destroyer had sailed near one of its destroyers on Saturday and forced it to slow down to avoid a collision. And that's news to the hour here on WESN. I'm Keaton Shaw. Thank you for watching. We'll have more for you at the top of the hour.
Welcome back to Talk About, folks. I was just educated on what could have been the what if of all political what ifs in TNT. What if 2010 went differently, for better or worse? I think, like Karen, I will be, wondering what if, with regards to our society, for the rest of my life. It'll just be one of those things, because I am an amateur student of history, Karen. And I do find it interesting, you could see big moments in history, turning points where, empires rose and fell and nations were created out of nothing and big empires turned into dust, and there might be some that we don't even know about in the Amazon and in the Sahara. And I just look at, well, we have a caller on the line, but I just, to say it quick if I don't get a chance, look at what the political class says about crime fighting now. Both parties now, right? And compare that to when you listen to what Karen said, and the vision of our overarching plan that would have included a whole set of measures, multiple levels, multiple areas of government, multiple physical, geographical areas of the country to deal with the money that comes in and then fuels corruption, fuels street crime, all the drug money. Think about that. Have we had anything as comprehensive coming out of either of the last two administrations? We have Pitty Valley on the line. I'm sorry I've kept you waiting. Good morning.
Good morning, Sean, and good morning, Karen, Tisha, and Eunice. Glad to see you.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to share an experience happened to me yesterday, and I will show how our electorate is very uninformed and uneducated. Yesterday, I was waiting for my son on Frederick Street. To only have one school on Frederick Street. I was waiting for him there, and I saw a big protest. Well, not a big, probably 100 or less than people coming up, and they went by the ABC, and they was protesting. So, the kind of guy I engaged them. I said, what you all are protesting about? They say, free and fair election. So it dawned on me, I said, free and fair election in Trinidad. I said, I think we are shining stone for free and fair election over the world. So I engaged them and asked them, when last in Trinidad they didn't have a free and fair election? One of the protesters told me, 2020. I say, okay. I say, in 2010 was the election free and fair? They started to stammer and couldn't engage me in facts. And then when they went low, they said, look at the car he's driving. He has money. He ain't hungry. He's a P&M. Having said that, my car is not a Mercedes-Benz or Audi, I think, a normal car, not a rich man. So I engage them. So having said that, I get to realize our electorate is very uninformed and uneducated. I reach so far to say I wouldn't hold back. Is our electorate at $300, a jersey, race, some food, and rum. Karen, I'm coming to you now with property tax. The electorate was uninformed too. And at your time, you all didn't push it because the electorate not informed. Coming back to property tax here now, do people know the property tax for the lowest people is $40 a month and $484 per year? And if you can't pay that, and say you're living on a pensioner, you are exempted for the rest of your life until probably you die and your children occupy the property, and they could probably afford it. Your child might be a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. They will have to start paying the property tax. Okay. And do people know the tax is not going to the government at all? The government not seeing the money. It's going to the corporations. And it is estimated the corporations might be earning 60 million, some corporations 40 million, on top what central government give them. So that could add up to be $100 and something million to serve you. So people, the electorate is not informed, and they just listen to
Can I interrupt you now? Because you're making a good point, and all your points are good points. And I think the first point you made, starting with it, or both points are good points. The first point is people see, unfortunately, things through the lens of, I think, of party affiliation, which in Trinidad and Tobago comes down to race. Because if you, and the reason I say that is because the question you asked them, they couldn't answer you. They could not answer you. Right, so we are on the same plane. Yeah. With regard to the second one, so we agree on that. With regard to the second one, is another call?
No.
With regard to the second one, you have no idea the tremendous effort. We sent out over 250,000 booklets. But one of the things that happened, which I may be sounding as though I'm making excuses, but I'll just say this for what it's worth, and you can be the judge on it. One of the things that really was not helpful was Mr. Manning calling the elections. So they used the Axie tax, which made Margaret Thatcher actually lose her position as Prime Minister, which was a completely different thing, which was based on a very, it was based on how many people lived in a house rather than the house itself. And for many people living in the inner cities, they were poor, and therefore there were more people as opposed to those living in lovely manors in the countryside where there were only 2 people. So the Axie tax had absolutely nothing, but it sounded right. The third thing, which I think people did not know, and that is my last point on it, I didn't know that we didn't have 2.5 more years. In May, we had the bills, or whatever you want to call notifications, actually prepared. And we knew that we did not have all the properties on the valuation roll. We understood that. But we also knew that the law said that if you did not come in on your own and let us notify us of your owning property, that you were liable now to a fine of $5,000. So the whole idea behind it was, by the time people got a year and a half of what the taxes really were, which was really very minimal, by that time people would say, oh, but they're making all this fuss. It's not a big deal. So that's all I have to say at this point in time.
I have to cut you there. I have some comments to give, but we have a caller from St. James. Let me not do what I did last time. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, lady and gentlemen.
Morning.
And the other gentleman probably listening online.
I think about sleeping.
You know, I just enjoy your program so much. It just light me up, you know, and so on. And I just called them, just make a little comment, and I was asking Karen some time ago, you know, could the government account, for instance, how they borrow money from NIS to do projects and then the money being returned back to NIS, you know, could they account? Is there any accountability? No, there is no accountability for that. So that last caller talking about we know the money that they're collecting for property tax will not go to the government. Hey, come on, man, wake up and live. So he made very good points, but in that area they're sleeping, you know, and there's absolutely no accountability, which I thought that existed with the way things were run in the 70s and 80s, right?
But I want to just tell you, because of course we're running out of time, just to let you know that the change they made to the law 2022 is they're only going after residential properties in the first instance. They're not going after commercial, industrial. Also, they're allowing the municipal corporations, which are made up of 2 cities, 3 boroughs, and 9 regional corporations, to keep the money and to be supplemented by funds from the consolidated fund, which was not what was intended in the first instance. So we can't go into it now. We don't have the time. With regard to the NIS, the NIS situation is a situation that is being fought on a global level, because the reality is people are living longer lives and people are having less children. So
I agree with all that.
Right. So I would just say one last thing. You did make me go. I have 2 family members who are actuaries in pensions, and they're very familiar. So I did ask them a question. Maybe you did ask me it. How did they arrive at everybody just getting 3,000? I know you have to have 750 contributions, but some people, and it was true, some people get 3,600, and how do they get that? So I did ask. I did not get the answer yet, but I promise you that I will get the answer, so I didn't ignore you.
Well, I just want to add one thing to that, is that I made almost triple my contributions, you know, almost triple.
Yeah.
And I get nothing for that, right? What? When I ask them, they say that's how that money will go towards helping other people who probably did not make the full contribution. You know, that is a lot of bunk, if you ask me. That is
something not right.
Absolute, because I am a question. I question everything, right? The other thing I want to say UNC make 2 mistakes in the past. Quick. Number 1 is Panday move the account of the NIS from that ministry to the Ministry of Finance. I know that we're going on a world level with NIS, but that made it more critical in this position that we are in, because the Ministry of Finance had the purse now. The other thing is that Kamala made one mistake that I don't like, is taking schooling out of school, because why we complaining about the children behavior, the way they're getting on?
Oh, quite a bigger problem ever. Don't blame Kamala alone now. Oh, God, please. I'm not for...
You understand? I just throwing things on the table. You all are responsible. You all are causing things to be highlighted. All you have a beautiful day. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. But we'll look at all what you said, though.
You can't be... Listen, caller, what you do is, when you have extra bombs, you call the next day and you offload one at a time.
I will look into the NIS thing. Yeah, I will.
So the one other thing though about the money, the property tax money, I do believe that the Minister of Finance has some level of oversight. So I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember if,
Yes, the Minister of Finance.
if he's like an intermediary that distributes it.
No, I don't
or
think
if it goes like, because he's supposed to have some amount of oversight over that money.
Over the
for
consolidated
well,
fund.
so we'll see how that goes.
See how it goes.
I still have to comment on a lot of things, but we have a caller from Arima. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Good morning, Ms. Karen Teixeira.
Good morning.
And good morning to you, Sean.
Morning.
I want to correct something here, and I'm not the addict of red. I'm not a fan of red or yellow. In 2000, the caller before claimed nobody in called voter pardon. Who cried voter pardon in 2000? And what was the results of the commission? What were the findings of the commission of inquiry in 2002, headed by the late Justice Dialting and Howard Kyan and I think and others? I can't remember the other people's name. What was the findings of that? And who cried the voter pardon? All I asking, brother.
Yeah, but you know what, sir?
The voter pardon of the others in 2020. He without sin cast the first
but can I just
stone,
say
red
with
and
regard
yellow.
to that, I'm just sorry to cut you like this, but I'm sure you know like what is happening in America. If there was voter pardoning, was it going to change the outcome of the results of the elections? And if it wasn't going to change, and that is what's happening in America with all the talk that Trump gave by way of analogy with Dominion, and of course you have to pay a lot of money for lying, right? I could say that and not be sued. The fact of the matter is, I think maybe when they look, as opposed to Guyana, and when you look at Guyana, it was a fact that whatever you want to call voter pardoning did result in an election result that was wrong. It was wrong. Maybe the 2002, they found some instances. You'll always find that. You'll always find some level of people doing that. But did it change the outcome? I have a feeling it did.
I actually think one can make the argument. Again, the 20...
I'm asking a question.
What's the question?
What was the finding of the commission
I don't
inquiry
know.
by Justice Dialting and Howard Kyan in the voter pardon issue?
What was it? You have the answer?
But I want to Google it. All you know, Google it there. Tribal, ethnic, racial voting. It's not a voter pardon in that. That was the finding. You can check it out, Mr. Shearer.
Okay.
And Sean, check it out.
No, right. So no voter pardon. I think that's the point that we were making.
Tribal, ethnic, racial voting. That was what it was.
Yeah.
But, and the thing about it is that most countries in the Caribbean don't have the issue that we have. None of those islands have this.
No, we don't have that here.
No. What we have is tribal voting, and the tribal voting isn't.
I'm not an Indian. I'm an African. I tell you that.
Well, but what I'm trying to say to you is this: that when people, I do not agree with it. I'm not agreeing with it.
Yeah.
But what I am saying to you, people may say, well, if I vote for an Indian Prime Minister, she's going to take care of me if I'm an Indian. As opposed to, I vote for a black Prime Minister, he's going to look after his own people. I'm putting it down in common parlance.
Society is made up of. Correct. Right. You preach, Mr. Shearer. Society made up of plain talk.
Plain talk, bad manners.
Bad manners.
And nobody will vote for the half Chinese guy. I'm just saying.
You're half Chinese.
No, but yes, I am.
I know that, but I don't know
My
where.
ears like yours, Sean Michael Small.
Sorry? I know he's half Chinese,
I am half Chinese.
His brother look Chinese,
I'm
not him.
well enough that I look like I'm from Syria. But
you look like Syria?
Listen, if
I'm
in Puerto Rico, they'll think I'm Puerto Rican. It all depends on the bed. Yes.
Take off the damn
If I'm in the Middle East, they'll think I'm a Middle Eastern.
Okay, we're not about you, but let me tell you, his brother looks Chinese, not him.
That's true.
When I go to Miami, people say,
Huh?
I say, well, I don't understand what you're talking about. Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidad.
He knows what he means. When you go there, they'll start saying, talking habla español, I start to speak Spanish there.
Caller, I have to go. After any call here, because I've enjoyed this conversation too long, and we might get another caller to sneak in. So thanks, caller, for that. Yes, one of the things that I want to say is that we need to understand with any electorate.
Yes.
People have problems in their life, right? Life is hard.
Life is hard.
One of the actual practical issues that we have to face is the fact that people need or they want to blame something for their problem. And now with politics,
they call it,
right, with
biblical
politics, a lot of the times, my life is not going right. It might not necessarily be because of things that the government has control over, but I want to blame politicians anyway, whether it is the sitting government or the opposition. That's a common phenomenon in human society that we need to constantly, there's a reason why objectivity is hard, and this is one reason why. We have a caller, I don't know if it's the same caller or a new caller from St. James. Good morning, caller.
Hello.
Morning.
Morning, Sean. Forgive me. Sorry, 2 seconds. Forgive me, Karen and Sean.
Two.
I just want to say that I love all the politicians. I hate the things that they do in terms of promising people so much and then what they give them. I also want to say Kamala is McGill because what she did in 5 years, PNM take about 30 years to do that. The among the things hospital file. And I want to say she have the record. Kudos to the woman here. Kamala have the record for suspending the most amount of ministers suspected of corruption. So not because of what I stated just now means I'm on the other side. No. I am for country, and I think her heart for the people is where it is from since back in the day. So you all have a beautiful day, Karen. God bless all you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Caller, I don't know if that was a serious call or satire, because and maybe there's some truth there. No, but I do, Kat, I do.
Okay.
I'll just say this. I think the UNC needs to move on. Whether you thought she's a good leader,
okay, you know why? Okay, there's a last caller.
We have a last caller from Claxton Bay, is it? Morning caller.
Yeah, hi, good morning, Claxton Bay.
Yes, morning.
Yeah.
You're here.
Mr. Tishera, I wanted to always ask you this question. You're an attorney at law, right? And they say attorney at law is supposed to study history.
I don't know if they have to, but I did. Go ahead. Your question.
I want to know what is the oppressive laws that we still have in the law books today that oppress a lot of people, and I say that especially black people, because the way how a lot of people could come to try to deal with black people, you don't see them dealing with Indian, Chinese, and Syrian that in this country.
All right.
So
okay, but that's how he feels. That's all. Okay, caller.
I didn't want to. We're running out of time.
Yeah, don't want to. I know a lot of people feel that way. It's not about the law. It's the implementation and enforcement and who they enforce it again. I guess what you're trying to say is you feel there's a level of discrimination in the enforcement of laws. Some people seem to get away and others don't, and you have taken it to mean. I don't really know if it's race as much as connections. But I want to say about the Kamala. And I did make a study of it. And Kamala Possessor, this is not personal at all. Please, it's not. But every person that she fired, she never took the initiative. It was only when the newspapers exposed it, they forced her hand.
Yes.
You know how hard it was for her to let go Anand Ramlugan? You know, because Gary Griffith came and said what he said. Well, boy, she got so mad. She said, "Yeah, I have to let go. Gary, because now Gary said what Gary said. Gary said that he was asked to do something by Anand, so she had to let go Anand. Then she had to let go Jack because the international bodies were under. Look at how many people. Mary King. She had to let go Mary King first one. You know why? Because Mary King came out and said. The Prime Minister told it was okay. There is not one instance that you could call of that general rotation of ministers, of almost 20 ministers, that I can recall that the Prime Minister, of her own volition, dealt with them and dismissed them. She did it when it was in the public domain and her hand was forced. So I cannot give her credit for what she did. If you tell me that she did what she did, and she had to have known. Don't tell me when it came in the paper she found out. Maybe 5% that might be true. But out of most of them, she already knew. And if the papers and the media did not expose it, every single last one of them would be in their jobs. So please do not give her credit for that. And I won't have anything against her this time.
For people that want to say, oh, you're attacking Kamala.
I am not.
You have said similar things with regards to the situation with Marlene McDonald. You know, it's plainly obvious. McDonald. It's plainly obvious, but they keep bringing her back. They keep bringing her back. But you're forced to fire her.
What about the other one? What's the one with the bald head? That she took $148,000 from one bank to the other bank, and the Farrers are worried, say it's okay. What about what's his name? The Gate, something Gate. What's the man's name?
Which one?
Oh gosh, the one where they paid him a set of money. Oh
God,
and they want to put the DPP. Yeah, why they don't deal with that?
But with regards to that specific situation, with Kamala's situation, I'll say this, and I've said this at least on the record once before. When Kamala was first elected, and when Dr. Edith Rowley was first elected, I was willing to say, well, all right, now the Prime Minister, let me see how they are as Prime Minister. When she fired the First Minister, I was like, well, okay, she's not protecting, okay.
No, she fired her only because Mary King came out and said that she told the Prime Minister, and she said it was okay.
My point is,
don't leave that out of the story.
Even if you want to say that it's good that she's firing her own ministers, the sheer number, at the end of the day, these are the people, she selected these people. Right?
No, we're going
to... I'm agreeing with you, Karen.
What you are agreeing to?
The sheer number of firings...
That's not my point.
I'm making a different point that doesn't contradict your point.
Okay.
The sheer number of firings...
Oh my God, like a revolving wall.
Maybe puts to doubt her judgment.
No, the sheer number of her firing is because every single one that she fired, every single one she fired, it was because it was exposed in the media.
Right.
You are not going to tell me
but my point
she
is
did not know before.
She chose those people.
Oh,
she chose so many people that's going to be corrupt. Then the problem starts with her judgment. The problem starts with her judgment. Right? In my opinion. But that's just a bad sign. It's a bad sign when so many of your people get... Yeah.
Anyway, okay, that's my point, huh?
Right.
And don't forget that's how Mary King got fired, eh?
Yes.
That's how she got fired. When she opened up her mouth and say, but the Prime Minister say it was okay. The Prime Minister say it was okay. You must be making jokes.
It is amazing how the ability to make verbal faux pas is like a historic tradition with regards to our politicians in the highest levels. I'm being polite, Karen. Yes. We're wrapping up the show. Kudos to the caller who did not use the words that he obviously wanted to say, and he refrained from cursing. I also have to refrain from strong language. But folks, we are out of time, so no more comments, Karen. I have to close the show. Want to thank everybody for calling in. Karen, of course, thank you for educating me on, again, something that I will just be thinking about what if, probably for the rest of my life, with the direction of my nation, the only place I've lived. This is Talking Point on WESN. Sean Michael Small, Karen News Shara. As my co-host always says, today is a good day to have a good day. So folks, please put your best foot forward for yourselves and for the people around you, your friends and family. We'll see you, not tomorrow, I believe, but on Friday. Bye-bye.
The perfect mix of news, current affairs, talk, debate, mature discussions, comedy and sports. Only at WESN, the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it?